At the beginning of the Infinity Castle arc, we see Kamado Tanjiro falling onto the ground of the building. However, he is unable to correct his posture in time to avoid the crash. Just then, Gyu helps him by grabbing him from behind. As Tanjiro starts thanking him, demons suddenly attack from the other side. At that moment, Gyu and Tanjiro slice them up simultaneously before quickly moving to the next location. Meanwhile, we see Obanai protecting Mitsuri from demons. On the other side, Himejima and Tokito are running through the Infinity Castle, talking about how grateful they are to Ubuyashiki. They also express their anger and determination to take revenge on Muzan. Meanwhile, Sanemi sits on the ground in disbelief. As demons start entering his location, he furiously slashes them down, tears streaming down his face as he promises to get his revenge. Elsewhere, Zenitsu, Inosuke, Genya, and Shinobu are running in different directions. However, Shinobu has the worst luck. She ends up facing Upper Moon 2, Doma, all alone. As he sees her, he smirks and mockingly says that he needs to thank Nakimi for sending a girl to his place. Shinobu begins remembering her sister's final wish, where she asked Shinobu to leave the demon slayers and find happiness like any other girl. However, Shinobu refuses, promising her sister that she will take revenge because she can't live knowing the one who did this to her is still out there. She then starts asking her sister to describe the demon who did this, and as her sister describes him, Shinobu immediately realizes that the demon in front of her, Upper Moon 2, Doma, is the one she's been searching for. As Doma begins to introduce himself, a woman starts crying out for help. When Doma attempts to silence her, Shinobu intervenes, saving her from his attack, but it's already too late. Doma then reveals his weapon, a pair of sharp fans, and continues his introduction, asking Shinobu if anything is bothering her. That's when Shinobu, for the first time, shows an angry expression and tells him that he's the one who killed her sister. When Doma recalls her sister, Shinobu attacks him, aiming for his left eye. However, Doma mocks her, saying she needs to cut off his head instead. At that moment, Doma feels something strange. Shinobu had poisoned him with her first attack, but he's able to decompose the poison. He smirks, telling her that this fight is going to be fun. After Shinobu tries 5 different poisons on the Upper Moon demon, Doma, none of them work because he can genuinely decompose every poison she uses on it. That's when Shinobu attacks him again, causing Doma to comment that she's fast, probably the fastest Hashira he's ever met. However, Shinobu is hit at the same time, losing a lot of blood. Doma laughs at her, telling her that she should just aim for his head instead of using poison. Shinobu begins to blame herself for being so tiny and not being able to grow any taller, thinking that her sister knew she couldn't win against him but didn't tell her. As she starts crying, her sister appears in front of her, urging her to push forward. Even when Shinobu makes excuses, her sister tells her to stand up, to do whatever it takes to win, and to fulfill the promise she made to her and Kanao. With renewed resolve, Shinobu stands up and faces Doma. He questions whether she's human, as normal people wouldn't get up after receiving so many slashes. But Shinobu uses her breath technique to move swiftly in all directions, making it difficult for Doma to read her attack. In that moment, Shinobu strikes from below, pushing Doma into the wall and aiming for his neck. Shinobu begins remembering her past, how a demon killed her parents and tried to kill her as well. However, Himejima arrived in time and hunted down the demon. It was then that Shinobu realized there were people willing to protect others' happiness from demons. She made the decision to join the Demon Slayer Corps as a promise to help others. We return to the present moment where Shinobu aims for Doma's neck. As she attacks, she remembers when Tanjiro asked her if she was angry. The truth is, she was. Her parents, sister, and students all died because of demons, and because of that, she cannot accept them. Once again, Shinobu fails to cut off Doma's head, and the poison doesn't work either. She collapses to the ground. Doma hugs her, mocking her, as he tells her she's better than her sister and that she worked so hard. Just then, Kanao arrives, but it's too late. Doma begins absorbing Shinobu into his body, and she screams as she attacks him. However, Doma overpowers her and continues to absorb her. This triggers Kanao's anger. Meanwhile, on the other side, Zenitsu finally finds what he's been searching for, the Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku. While Tanjiro and Gyu are searching for Muzan's location in the Infinity Castle, the building tries to separate them, but they remain together. However, a crow arrives to inform them that Shinobu is dead after her battle with Upper Moon 2. Tanjiro is shocked and starts crying, while Gyu continues analyzing the surroundings, focused on their mission. For the first time, we see the new Ubuyashiki heir, along with his 2 sisters, managing the battle behind the scenes, giving orders to the demon slayers. Meanwhile, we return to Zenitsu, who is facing Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku. As they begin talking, Zenitsu asks Kaigaku why he chose to become a demon. He also brings up how their grandfather ended his life after learning that his student Kaigaku turned into a demon. However, Kaigaku doesn't care at all. In fact, he seems pleased about it. This response triggers Zenitsu, and he begins disrespecting Kaigaku. In retaliation, Kaigaku attacks Zenitsu using both his breath and blood demon art techniques. But Zenitsu is quick, appearing behind Kaigaku and slashing him without Kaigaku even realizing it. Zenitsu calls him trash and glares at him with a serious expression, something that makes Kaigaku realize that Zenitsu has become a completely different person. As the battle between Kaigaku and Zenitsu continues, Kaigaku gains the upper hand. He dominates the fight. Zenitsu begins to fall through the Infinity Castle, his vision blurring. In that moment, memories from his past resurface when he was just a student. He remembers how Kaigaku always hated him, and although Zenitsu felt the same, deep down, down, he still respected Kaigaku from the bottom of his heart. He acknowledges that Kaigaku was special and important to their grandfather as well. Zenitsu decides that this is where their paths must finally diverge. He whispers a quiet apology to his former brother-in-arms. With newfound resolve, Zenitsu unleashes a technique never seen before, the seventh form of thunder breathing. In an instant, he beheads Kaigaku, so fast that Kaigaku doesn't even see it coming. As his severed head falls, Kaigaku refuses to accept this ending. He bitterly claims that their grandfather must have had a favorite, a student he secretly taught a hidden technique to. However, Zenitsu, falling to the ground as the poison begins to take over his body, responds, "My grandfather wasn't that kind of person," he says. "This technique, I created it myself, hoping that one day I could fight alongside him." As both Zenitsu and Kaigaku falling inside the Infinity Castle, Kaigaku refuses to accept that Zenitsu was able to create a new thunder-breathing technique, and, even worse, that he lost to him. However, Yushiro arrives at the scene, mocking Kaigaku for dying alone against someone he always considered weak. Yushiro rushes to save Zenitsu. At that moment, Zenitsu finds himself in a vision where he meets his grandfather. He immediately apologizes for what happened to Kaigaku, believing that his grandfather must hate him for it. But his grandfather simply calls his name and tells him that he is his pride and joy. We then see Yushiro and the Kakushi working tirelessly to heal Zenitsu. Yushiro explains to him that Kaigaku was a newly turned upper moon and had not yet mastered his blood demon art, making Zenitsu incredibly lucky to have won the fight. Meanwhile, Kamado Tanjiro continues searching for Muzan when suddenly Akaza appears. At the same time, we see Muzan transforming into a massive ball of flesh, absorbing Tamayo into his body. Trapped and helpless, Tamayo clings to the hope that someone will come to save her and take Muzan down, but no one arrives. When one of the Ubuyashiki girls begins crying, mourning her family that was murdered by Muzan, the new Ubuyashiki leader firmly tells her to stop crying and focus on winning the battle. Meanwhile, Tengen and Rengoku's father stand guard, protecting the remaining Ubuyashiki family members from demons. Elsewhere, Urokodaki watches over Nezuko as she sleeps, ensuring she is safe from Muzan. Sweat pours from her body as she endures the immense pain caused by the medicine that is meant to turn demons back into humans. Urokodaki senses that this will be the final battle, one that will determine the fate of the Demon Slayer Corps. Back on the battlefield, Tanjiro swiftly dodges Akaza's attack and slices off his left hand. Akaza retaliates, launching another strike, but Tanjiro evades once more and slashes his head. Gyu watches in awe, realizing just how much Tanjiro has grown, his skills now rivaling even the strongest warriors. Akaza, unfazed, acknowledges that Kyojuro Rengoku was right about how strong Tanjiro can become. He declares that he will show his respect by fighting, seriously activating his blood demon art. Gyu and Tanjiro start attacking the Upper Moon 3 Akaza at the same time, but he easily dodges their moves. And when Akaza lunges at Tanjiro, Gyu swiftly slices off his hand. Akaza regenerates instantly and delivers a powerful kick to Tanjiro's face, sending him flying away. Then he turned to Gyu and asks for his name, but Gyu coldly refuses, stating that he hates demons just as much as he hates talking, and continue fighting, but Akaza persists, continuing to ask for his name before suddenly kicking him away. Turning his attention back to Tanjiro, Akaza engages him in battle while reminiscing about Kyojuro Rengoku. He claims that it was a blessing that Rengoku died that night because he would never have been able to grow any stronger, and that what make Tanjiro, filled with rage, yells at Akaza to shut up. However, Akaza continues speaking, expressing his disdain for the weak and how they make him vomit. Tanjiro firmly declares that the strong must protect the weak, and the weak must become stronger to protect those even weaker than themselves. While Akaza's expression darkens as he grows visibly enraged by Tanjiro's words for a reason that we will find out. As Akaza grows furious over Tanjiro's words, a mysterious voice suddenly echoes behind him, repeating exactly what had angered him moments ago. Instinctively, Akaza swings his fist to attack, but there is no one there. Tanjiro watches in confusion as Akaza punches the empty air, his rage intensifying. Enraged, Akaza refocuses on Tanjiro and launches a relentless assault. Akaza dominates the fight, overwhelming Tanjiro with his speed and power. Desperate to find a way to reach him, Tanjiro begins thinking of a new strategy. When he finally executes the dance of the fire god, his blade barely grazes Akaza's neck, even though Akaza had managed to dodge the attack. Meanwhile, Senjuro prays for Tanjiro and his late father while writing a letter about the deep connection between Yoriichi and the Rengoku family, but the letter has yet to reach Tanjiro, as the battle has already begun. Akaza grabs Tanjiro's sword and attempts to snap it in half. Tanjiro retaliates with a fierce headbutt and a powerful kick, but Akaza refuses to let go. Just then, Gyu re-enters the fight. Gyu finally awakens his Demon Slayer mark, and as he attacks, he manages to cut a small portion of Akaza's neck. Akaza quickly realizes that Gyu's speed has significantly increased since the mark appeared, but he refuses to back down and continues the fight. Tanjiro watches in awe, noting that both of them are incredibly fast, yet Akaza is still able to match Gyu's speed. Determined to help, Tanjiro begins analyzing the battle, searching for a way to join the fight effectively. He recalls Akaza's words, which strangely align with Inosuke's explanation explanation of sensing attacks without looking. Inosuke had once told him that when someone tries to harm him, his body instinctively reacts, just like Tanjiro's sense of smell. Inosuke had also mentioned that this ability could be used in two ways, either to detect incoming attacks instantly or to suppress one's presence so that others couldn't sense them. As Tanjiro begins to grasp the concept, he suddenly attacks Akaza from behind. Akaza instinctively stops the attack and attempts to punch Tanjiro away, but this time, Tanjiro dodges effortlessly. At that moment, he finally understands what battle spirit truly means. Tanjiro recalls his father, calm, gentle, never showing anger. He remembers how his father once told him about the Hinokami Kagura, the dance of the sun, and how he could perform it from sunrise to sunset without rest. Even while frail and sick, he never complained. He said it was thanks to a breathing technique that let him move efficiently with almost no effort. One night, his father woke him, sensing something strange in the woods. Tanjiro followed, drowsy, until they encountered a massive bear, twice his father's size. Tanjiro froze, terrified, but his father remained still and calm. Holding only a small axe, he whispered, "I feel sorry for your hunger, but I won't show mercy if you threaten my family." The bear charged, and in a blink, his father beheaded it so fast Tanjiro couldn't even follow the movement. Before returning home, his father said, "Don't forget what you saw tonight." Back in the present, Tanjiro reflects on Inosuke's words and his father's teachings. Then, he unlocks the see-through world. He can now see Akaza's muscles, blood flow, every movement. This time, he'll end it. Tanjiro finally unlocks the see-through world. His vision changes and everything slows down. He can see Akaza's muscles moving and his blood flowing. He understands what Inosuke meant by hiding your fighting intent so no one can read your next move. Gyu keeps fighting Akaza, even though Akaza is much stronger. He tries to land a clean slash, but Akaza breaks his sword and aims a punch at his stomach, the same attack he used to kill Rengoku. Then, in a flash, Akaza's arm is cut off. Tanjiro stands behind him, quiet and focused. That one strike says everything. Akaza is shocked. His whole body screams, because Tanjiro feels different than before. Akaza uses his blood demon art to attack both of them at the same time, but Tanjiro watches it all calmly. Seeing all the movement, Akaza turns to Gyu again, asking him to become a demon instead of dying like Rengoku. But just then, Tanjiro moves. Gyu expects a fast strike, but instead, Tanjiro shouts, "I'm gonna cut off your head, Akaza!" Akaza and Gyu are shocked. In that moment, Akaza realizes he can't feel Tanjiro's battle spirit. He can't see what Tanjiro will do next. And then, Tanjiro's sword cuts through his neck, letting him in shock. After Tanjiro cuts off Akaza's head, Akaza questions why he lacked battle spirit, claiming even babies have some. He tries to reattach his head to regenerate, but Gyu throws his sword, striking Akaza's head to prevent it. As Akaza's head begins to disintegrate, Tanjiro believes the battle is finally over. However, Gyu senses something is wrong. Akaza's body remains standing. Suddenly, Akaza uses his blood demon art, sealing his neck and attacking Tanjiro with a powerful kick that sends him crashing into a wall. While Tanjiro struggles to stay conscious, he reaches his limit and collapses. Akaza approaches to finish him, but Gyu intervenes. However, Akaza quickly overpowers Gyu and turns his focus back to Tanjiro. As Gyu shouts that Akaza must go through him first, Akaza is halted by a memory. He sees a woman from his past crying and begging him to stop. While Gyu struggles to keep fighting Akaza, nearing his limits, Akaza begins to see the vision of a girl he doesn't recognize. As he tries to understand, memories from his past flood in. As a child, Akaza committed crimes like stealing and fighting, desperate to afford medicine for his sick father. However, after being arrested and tortured, he learned that his father had taken his own life, not wanting to live off stolen money and hoping Akaza could live freely. Enraged, Akaza fought and defeated 7 men alone. That's when he met Keizu, a martial arts master who was impressed by his strength and knocked him out in one hit. Keizu took him in, teaching him the Soryu fighting style. Later, Keizu introduced his sick daughter Koyuki and asked Akaza to take care of her while he was away. Akaza agreed and, over time, grew close to her. It was then that he made a promise to protect her no matter what. We see Akaza gently caring for Koyuki, saying it's easy since he once took care of his father. When Koyuki tells him to go see the fireworks, he replies they'll go together next time. There's always another year. She quietly starts crying. Afterward, Keizu entrusts him with the dojo and speaks of people who want the land for themselves. 3 years pass. Akaza turns 18, Koyuki 16, and Keizu asks him to inherit the dojo and marry Koyuki. Akaza, finally understanding his father's words, visits his grave to tell him the good news. But when he returns, he finds Keizu and Koyuki poisoned, killed by those who couldn't beat them in a fair fight. Moments earlier, Koyuki had confessed her love, and Akaza had promised to protect her forever. Now, those words feel empty. In rage, Akaza attacks the nearby Kenjutsu dojo, slaughtering all 67 members with his bare hands. As he wanders, Muzan appears, saying he didn't expect to find a human capable of such destruction. He offers Akaza his blood, challenging him to survive it. Akaza, numb with grief, accepts, becoming a demon who forgot everything, except the need to grow stronger. As the battle nears its end, Akaza realizes he won't reunite with his loved ones if he dies like this. His memories return just as Tanjiro wakes up and yells for him to stop. Tanjiro rushes to strike, but his sword slips from his weak grip, so he punches Akaza with all his strength. Akaza mutters how he hates cowards who poison others, how he stained his master's Soryu style, and disrespected his father's dying wish. He remembers now, the one he wanted to kill was himself. Sensing Akaza preparing the same technique he used against Rengoku, Tanjiro shields Gyu, but instead, Akaza smiles and turns the technique on himself. His body begins to regenerate, but he resists it. It's over, he says. I lost. I want to go to hell like a man. Kneeling, he apologizes to his father and Keizu. Muzan appears, disappointed, but Koyuki enters the vision, thanking him. As tears fall, she says, welcome back, my husband, and Akaza finally fades away in peace. As Akaza burns away holding Koyuki in his arms, Tanjiro breathes out, it's over, before collapsing from exhaustion. Gyu, barely able to stand, sits to rest. A crow soon arrives, announcing that Tanjiro and Gyu have defeated Upper Moon 3. Kokushibo hears the news and remarks that Akaza had the potential to grow much stronger, but he chose to abandon that path, and so he died. Meanwhile, Doma senses Akaza's death. He notices something strange, almost human about it, but quickly dismisses it. Wounded and determined, Kanao faces Doma. He fakes sadness, calling Akaza his best friend. Kanao interrupts him coldly, saying demons can't feel real emotions. She explains how Kanai pitied him, not for his power, but for his emptiness. Mocking him, she asks why someone like him was even born. Doma snaps, calling her a bully, and attacks. But Kanao dodges and slashes his stomach. Surprised, Doma realizes she's faster and stronger now, perhaps even stronger than Shinobu. Kanao begins to realize the overwhelming difference in power between her and Doma, but still refuses to back down. She attacks with all her strength, knowing the odds are against her. Doma, intrigued by her determination, notes that her sharp, precise movements come from her exceptional eyesight and decides to target her eyes. He lunges, but Kanao narrowly dodges, leaping back just in time. Doma quickly takes control of the battle, overwhelming her with speed and precision. Unable to keep up, Kanao struggles to close the distance. Then, in a sudden move, Doma knocks her sword away, leaving her momentarily frozen in shock. He calmly sticks the sword into the ground like a trophy and strikes again, giving her no room to escape. Kanao takes the hit, bloodied but still standing. Just when it seems like she's done for, Inosuke bursts onto the scene with a wild scream, turning the fight into 2 versus 1 and giving Kanao a chance to breathe. Inosuke, with his usual reckless energy, realizes he's facing Upper Moon 2. He grins, thinking that defeating Doma might make him a Hashira. Seeing Kanao bleeding heavily, he asks if she's okay, adding that Shinobu wouldn't be happy to see her like this. But when Kanao looks down in silence, Inosuke understands. Shinobu is gone. Doma calmly confirms it, revealing that he absorbed Shinobu into his body. Inosuke flashes back to how kind she was to him, how gently she cared for him. Fury builds in him, and he roars that he'll make Doma pay. Charging in, Inosuke's wild, unpredictable moves surprise Doma, especially his flexible body. Without realizing it, Inosuke snatches Kanao's sword back from Doma and tosses it to her. Doma counterattacks, but Inosuke, from a distance, slashes his eyes. I aimed for your neck, he says, but I'm still perfecting that move. Even with his arm twisted horribly, Inosuke resets it, completely unfazed. Kanao watches in shock. Doma then removes Inosuke's mask. Puzzled, he remembers that face from somewhere. The Upper Moon, too. Doma is a demon who remembers everything from his past, even after becoming a demon. However, he starts talking about Inosuke's mother, saying she was treated badly by her husband and her own mother, so she run to Doma place. But when Doma healed her, he noticed how kind and beautiful her face looked. Inosuke didn't believe him at first, until Doma sang a song. It was the same song his mother used to sing to him when he was little. Doma says he never planned to kill her. He wanted her to stay with him until she died naturally. But one day, she saw him eating people and realized he was a demon. Scared and heartbroken, Kotoha ran away with Inosuke in her arms. When she reached a cliff with no way out, she dropped Inosuke into the river below to save his life. And that when we see Doma killing her and feeling sorry for Inosuke, thinking he probably gonna die. Hearing all this, Inosuke finally remembers his true mother, and with tears and rage, he promises to show Doma what real hell looks like before ending him. After Doma, the Upper Moon 2, speaks about Inosuke's mother, how unhappy she was with her life and ran away to him. Inosuke, overwhelmed with rage, charges in, while Kanao quietly moves behind Doma, aiming for his neck. Yet Doma still control the fight. Suddenly, he summons an ice clone just as powerful as himself, saying he's too busy after Akaza's death and leaves them to deal with it. Impressed by Inosuke's sharp senses, though he believes he's simply lucky to be born with it as he was raised in forest, Doma creates 5 more ice dolls to ensure their defeat. As both Inosuke and Kanao struggle to fight back before he go away, Inosuke suffers deep slashes and starts to panic, but Kanao urges him to hold on just a little longer, and Doma starts asking himself why she says that as he feels something off. Then, suddenly, Doma's face begins to melt. He stumbles, falling to one knee. In confusion, he sees Shinobu's face with evil smile, meaning she did something to him when he absorbed her. After Doma starts melting, we see a flashback of Shinobu explaining her plan to Kanao. She knew Doma would absorb her, so she filled her body with a strong poison made from wisteria flowers, which weakens demons. She had been doing this for over a year, and by the time of the fight, her body held 37 kilograms of poison, more than enough to work on it. Back in the fight, Doma struggles to heal, and his ice dolls begin to break apart. Inosuke and Kanao rush in to cut his his neck, but Doma uses his blood demon art to push them back. Kanao remembers why Shinobu gave up her life yet still worried and warned her about a special move that could make her go blind. But Kanao doesn't hesitate. She uses the Breath of Flowers, final form, to dodges the ice doll and aims for Doma's neck. Even as her body starts freezing, she keeps going. Inosuke throws his swords into Doma's head, and together, they finally cut off his neck. After Kanao cuts off Doma's head, his body starts to fall apart. He feels nothing. No fear, no regret, not even sadness about dying in such a pathetic way. He still thinks maybe he can regenerate like Muzan or Akaza, but his body keeps crumbling. He remembers how, as a child, his mother killed his father and then poisoned herself. Even then, he didn't feel anything. At 20, he became a demon and lived for many years, but never felt emotions. Shinobu appears, saying she can now rest in peace. Her plan to poison Doma worked, with help from Tamayo. She says everyone is winning, so she doesn't regret working with her. Doma, for the first time, feels something. Love. He asks her to come to hell with him, but her answer is quietly clear. Back in the scene, Inosuke cries after realizing his mother loved him and that Tanjiro was right. In the other way, Kanao looks for any piece of Shinobu's hair. Remembering her sisters and parents, then for the first time Kanao start crying, missing both of them deeply. After Tanjiro and Giyu wins against the Upper Moon 3, Akaza, Tanjiro wakes up to see Giyu start preparing for the next battle. As the crow informs them that Inosuke and Kanao have defeated the Upper Moon 2, Doma, Tanjiro reflects on how everyone is doing an incredible job defeating the Upper Moons one by one, getting closer to defeating Muzan. Meanwhile, in the other side we see Mitsuri and Obanai are facing the Upper Moon 4 Nakimi that already got replaced. Mitsuri attacks, but Nakimi dodges her moves in a way that feels embarrassing. Nakimi tries to separate them, but Mitsuri starts to understand the demon's power. She dodges her and attacks again, but once more, Nakimi dodges her effortlessly. Elsewhere, in the Infinity Castle, Tokido and Himejima are running when suddenly Tokido gets separated from Himejima by Nakami's power, facing alone the strongest of the Upper Moons, Kokushibo, Upper Moon 1. As Tokido faces the Upper Moon 1 and feels fear for the first time, Kokushibo sees through him and asks for his name. Tokito introduces himself, and Kokushibo reveals that Tokido is his descendant from the Tsugikuni family. Shocked, he quickly controls his fear, impressing Kokushibo, and attacks, but he dodges and taunts him, saying the Tsugikuni name has died, though the bloodline lives on in Tokido. Tokido refuses to accept this, activating his mark and unleashing a new technique that surprises Kokushibo, saying he didn't see it before, so it means he created it by himself. Intrigued, Kokushibo unshields his sword and uses the Breath of the Moon's first form to cut off Tokido's arm. Tokito, shocked to see a demon using a original breath technique, stops the bleeding with his hair and attacks again. Kokushibo, impressed, retaliates by pinning Tokido to the wall with his sword, deciding to turn Tokido into a demon. Kokushibo decides to turn Tokido into a demon and stops his bleeding to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Genya hides nearby, scared, holding his shotgun, but suddenly, Kokushibo appears behind him and cuts off his arm. Genya pulls out his sword to fight, but Kokushibo cuts it too. Knowing Genya has eaten demons before, he slices Genya in half, saying he met someone like him before and killed him in the same way. But Genya is still alive, so Kokushibo thinks he'll die for sure if he cuts off his head like any other demon. Then, the most awaited scene happens. Sanemi arrives, protecting his little brother. He says he killed their mother for Genya's sake, so he could live a peaceful, normal life with a family of his own, and he'll make sure no demons will get in his way. Fueled by rage, Sanemi attacks Kokushibo, dodging his strike and releasing his first form. Kokushibo draws while Sanemi mocks him, calling his blade disgusting. As Sanemi dodges Kokushibo's fifth form, he starts analyzing him. He admits he can't even blink after seeing Kokushibo's speed and power. It's no surprise Tokido lost. Kokushibo is not only a demon, but also a master of both blood demon art and the breath technique, and he heals faster than anyone. Sanemi uses his second form, showing off his flexibility, and Kokushibo notes that Sanemi is at his peak. Their clash continues with intense techniques, but Sanemi starts bleeding, showing he's struggling to keep up. Kokushibo unleashes his sixth form and slashes him badly. Sanemi is left bloody, and Kokushibo warns him not to move or his organs might spill out. But then Kokushibo senses something strange. Sanemi starts talking about his rare blood, which is so powerful it makes demons dizzy and drunk. As Kokushibo begins to feel it, Sanemi charges in for a counterattack. Sanemi first noticed his special blood when his demon mother's movement slowed after hitting him. He realized his blood could weaken demons and decided to hunt them alone with reckless plans and luck. One day, he met Kumano, who introduced him to the Demon Slayer Corps. After Kumano died fighting Lower Moon 1, Sanemi became a Hashira. At first, Sanemi hated the Ubuyashiki family, thinking they just gave orders and stayed safe. But when he met Oyakata-sama, he saw his kindness. Oyakata apologized for Sanemi's loss and said he wished he could fight too, but his illness stopped him. Kanai told Sanemi that Oyakata remembers every demon slayer who died. Shocked, Sanemi received a letter from Kumano, saying he wanted to protect those he loved until the end. Sanemi realized he felt the same way about Genya. Back in battle, Kokushibo drives Sanemi's sword into the ground and aims for his neck. Sanemi tries to use his brother's shotgun, but fails. Just as Kokushibo strikes, Sanemi vanishes, and suddenly, Yume, the strongest strongest Hashira, arrives. After Gyomei enters the battle, Kokushibo smiles, saying he hasn't seen someone like him in 300 years. As he gets serious, the air shifts. He throws his chained weapons with precision, surprising Kokushibo. He struggles to use his moon breathing while Gyomei uses his rock breathing second form, trapping him in chains. Unable to break free, he managed to slip, but his hair gets cut, aims straight for his neck. But he throws his weapons again, showing incredible control. As Kokushibo thinks, the chains wrap around his sword and snap it in half. Both use their breath techniques, shaking the entire area with power. Kokushibo regenerates, but Gyomei gets a slash across his face. He says he wanted to save this power for Muzan, but now he has nothing to lose. His mark appears, and his rage grows even stronger. Tokido breaks free from the sword Kokushibo used to pin him to the wall and stops the bleeding. Genya, still alive, asks him for a piece of Kokushibo's hair that Gyomei managed to cut off. As Gyomei's mark glows, Kokushibo reflects on how he's probably 27, past the usual death limit of 25 for marked demon slayers. He laments that all his strength and effort will vanish tonight, but Gyomei calmly replies that every marked slayer knows this and accepts it. He says how pathetic Kokushibo's opinion is while forcing his worldview on others. Then Gyomei says that Kokushibo did lie about one thing, and that there's one exception. Someone once lived past 25 with a mark. Kokushibo seems shaken. Suddenly, he attacks Gyomei from behind in rage, unleashing wild slashes. Meanwhile, Sanemi finishes healing and awakens his own mark. He jumps into the battle, making it 2 versus 1. Kokushibo is impressed that they use different breaths, but still fight in perfect sync. Tokito helps Genya eat Kokushibo's hair, and he regenerates quickly, feeling the upper moon one Kokushibo's power surge in his blood. Suddenly, he hears Muzan's voice inside his head. Back in the fight, Kokushibo understands that these two are the strongest Hashira, especially Gyomei. Even blindness doesn't weaken him. Kokushibo tries to break Sanemi's sword first, but Sanemi thrusts it into the ground and cuts off some of his hair. Kokushibo is shocked that Sanemi can still move like that, even after taking all those slashes. Even with the mark, Gyomei joins in and slices off Kokushibo's ear. The two Hashira fight in perfect sync, landing blows using both breath techniques and tearing Kokushibo's kimono. Just as they press forward, slashes appear from nowhere. Kokushibo then reveals his sword's true form and gets serious, declaring that once he kills them, defeating the rest of the demon slayers will be easy. As Kokushibo unleashes his sword's true form, he cuts off Sanemi's fingers, and as he panics, fearing he might lose his arms without Gyomei's help, he realizes his rare blood has lost its effect. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's daughter asks to send backup, but the boy refuses, trusting them to defeat Upper Moon One. Back to the fight, Kokushibo unleashes his 7th to 10th forms, nearly killing Sanemi, but Tokido saves him just in time. Genya, panicking, wonders how he can help. Then he remembers Tanjiro's words saying when the strongest clash, they ignore the weakest. Realizing he's unnoticed, Genya takes the chance to shift the battle's outcome. With newfound resolve, Genya makes a bold move. He eats the piece of Kokushibo's sword to help create their path to victory. As the fight with Upper Moon One Kokushibo continues, Gyomei starts to panic, asking how fast Kokushibo can unleash his techniques quickly, as if he knows their next moves before even taking them. So he realizes that he might be seeing something others can't. But by observing closely, Gyomei finally unlock the transparent world too, just like Tanjiro and Kokushibo. At that moment, the 3 Hashiras launch a coordinated attack. While Kokushibo prepares to strike back, Gyomei throws a ball, hitting Kokushibo's hand to stop him, while Sanemi distracts him with his wind techniques. Tokido drives his blade into Kokushibo's stomach. At that moment, he realizes that Tokido and Gyomei can now see the transparent world just like him. As he prepares to attack them, Genya appears behind holding a shotgun that looks like Kokushibo's sword, his eyes and mark now similar too. He recalls Tokido's words who ask him to shoot both of them if needed. He starts to panic, but Genya makes his decision and shot them at the end. As Genya shot them both, the bullet pierces Kokushibo. While he realizes Genya's pressure changed, he ate his sword and hair. Suddenly, a tree appears from Kokushibo's body. It's Genya's blood demon art, inherited from his own cells. Frozen in place, he feels something he hasn't in 400 years. Fear. A flashback begins. 400 years ago, under a blood moon, Kokushibo sees his brother Yoriichi again, now an old man, over 80. Shocked, Kokushibo can't understand how a marked swordsman lived past 25, yet he's still alive. Yoriichi, eyes full of sorrow, says it's heart-wrenching, and Kokushibo prepares to strike if Yoriichi draws his blade towards him. But as Yoriichi takes his stance, the air grows heavy. He warns Kokushibo that he's coming, and in one slash, he managed to cut his neck clean through. Kokushibo regenerates, filled with rage. Yoriichi hadn't lost any speed, his power still terrifying even after 80 long years. Kokushibo prepares for the next strike that Kokushibo definitely know it gonna kill him, but it never comes. Yoriichi dies standing, a normal death of old age. After Yoriichi died standing, Kokushibo realized that if Yoriichi had lived just a few more seconds, he would have died. Knowing the strongest swordsman is gone now, he believed no one could defeat him. Back to the battle, he screams, slashing the Hashira's back. Tokido is cut in half like Gojo, and Genya is slashed at the top, and he generate blades all over his body. However, the Hashira's aims for his head, and Tokito's sword turns red, searing Kokushibo's insides. Sanemi pierces his neck as Genya, while dying, uses a blood demon art to hold Kokushibo still. He tries to cut him in half, but his technique fails. Yume throws his weapon at his head, but it doesn't work. He screams, dodging Yume's second attack with his sword. After that, he realizes his sword techniques aren't coming out because the tree on his back absorbed his blood, and Tokito's red blade that looks like Yoriichi's sword burning him inside. In that moment, Sanemi jumps, using his sword to push Yume's weapon down onto Kokushibo's head. As both weapons glow red, and finally, Kokushibo's head is destroyed. After Kokushibo reflects to Yoriichi on how their breathing technique will soon vanish, he remembers how he always smiled, always optimistic, and that's what makes him feel disgust. Back in the fight, after Genya and the Hashira manage to cut off Kokushibo's head, he thinks about how this new generation, without the original sun breathing, still managed to turn their blades red and fight with unorthodox styles. Refusing to lose, he stops his head bleeding. At that moment, Yume yells not to let him go, and to continue slashing him until he vanishes, but he regenerates in a monstrous form, thinking he conquers death now, except the sun, as he sees his reflection in Sanemi's blade, realizing how ugly he's become chasing the perfect form. He remembers how Yoriichi wanted to be the second strongest samurai, just behind him. Then, the part where Muichiro stabbed him begins to crumble, while Sanemi and Yume attack again, destroying his upper body. Struggling to regenerate, Kokushibo begins to give up, realizing, in the end, all he ever wanted was to be like his little brother, Yoriichi. Kokushibo always wanted to be like his twin brother, Yoriichi. At birth, Yoriichi had a strange mark on his head, and their father wanted to kill him, but their mother stopped it. Still, the difference in treatment was clear. Yoriichi lived poorly, yet always stayed close to their mother. One day, Kokushibo gave him a flute, thinking he didn't see him smiling before. Later, while training with a swordmaster, Yoriichi asked to join. The teacher gave him a small wooden sword and showed him the basics. Shockingly, Yoriichi defeated him with just 4 strikes, even though Kokushibo had trained hard and never landed a hit on their master. Yoriichi then said he didn't want to be a samurai. He hated hurting others. When Kokushibo asked how he was so strong, Yoriichi explained to only follows his opponent's bones, muscles, and blood flow, what we now know as the see-through world. At that moment, Kokushibo realized Yoriichi was born with rare talent, his eyes, his mark, but Yoriichi didn't want it. He just wanted to play with his brother. That's when Kokushibo knew the power he desperately wanted was wasted on someone who didn't even want to use it. After Yoriichi defeated their teacher, Kokushibo feared the teacher would report it, and by morning, their father would switch their roles. He started giving up on his dream of becoming the strongest samurai. But at 3 a.m., Yoriichi quietly came to say goodbye, informing him that their mother had passed away and he was leaving now. He showed to Kokushibo the flute he had gifted him long ago, saying it always reminded him of his brother and he'll take care of it all the time, as Kokushibo had given it just like trash, but Yoriichi had treasured it. The next morning, Kokushibo found their mother's diary. He found out that Yoriichi had known of his mother's illness, so he had always stayed by her left side not for comfort but to support and take care of her. As Yoriichi had left that time to protect Kokushibo's position, he continued following his dream. Realizing this, Kokushibo's heart twisted, and from that moment he started hating him, wishing him to disappear forever. After Yoriichi leaves, Kokushibo starts living a peaceful life for 10 years. He gets married and has 2 kids, but he feels bored with this life. One day, Kokushibo and his teammates were attacked by a demon, and Yoriichi appeared, easily defeating the demon. Kokushibo's hate grew again as Yoriichi apologized for being late. However, Kokushibo wanted to be stronger than Yoriichi again, so he abandoned his family and joined the demon hunters. He trained hard, but still couldn't reach Yoriichi's level. When he got the same mark as Yoriichi, he couldn't use the breath of the sun. His technique was named the breath of the moon. Suddenly, all other marked people start dying. Kokushibo knew he didn't have time to catch up, and the golden age of demon hunters will vanish soon. One night, Muzan appears, offering him immortality to perfect his techniques, so he decides to become a demon. Back to the sense when Kokushibo ended Yoriichi's life, he found out that he's still carrying the old flute. He starts crying, realizing that Yoriichi's legacy lives on, while he had abandoned everything, his family, humanity, and dreams. He feels his life was meaningless compared to Yoriichi's enduring his mark and power to Tanjiro, and questioned why he even born hoping for an answer from him. After Kokushibo dies, Himejima orders Sanemi to stop, but he doesn't because he was already passed out. Impressed by his willpower, Himejima moves Sanemi next to Genya, who was cut in half, so Genya could know his brother is alive. He finds Tokito dead, closes his eyes, and promises to defeat Muzan for him so he can rest in peace. In the afterlife, Tokito meets his brother, who cries, calling his death pointless. Tokito cries too, saying he lived happily, fought to protect his friends, and had no regrets. His brother admits he didn't want him to die. Back in the real world, Sanemi wakes up screaming as Genya crumbles away like any demon. Genya confesses his feelings, and Sanemi, crying, says he never hated him and only wanted to protect him. Genya tells him he's the sweetest brother and vanishes. Sanemi screams to God not to take him, while Himejima stands behind him, telling him to raise his head and the fight fight isn't over until they kill Muzan. After the crow informs Tanjiro and Giyu that Genya and Tokito are dead after defeating the Upper Moon one. Tanjiro cries but keeps running, thinking he knows the dance of the fire. God has 13 forms, yet he only knows 12, but he'll definitely kill Muza using them. Meanwhile, Ubuyashiki's son panics about not making it in time. His sister tells him the swordsman reached Muzan's place and another is close. He orders them to wait for the Hashiras. Elsewhere, the first group reaches Muzan. Suddenly, Muzan appears and slaughters them all. Ubuyashiki's boy screams for backup, but it's too late because all are dead. Muzan mocks him, saying he brought him food to recover and plans to turn him into a demon. He then mocks Tamayo and crushes her head. Yushiro senses it and gets furious. Back to Muzan. He kills the second group too, declaring he will wipe out the demon slayers himself tonight as the night of bloody murder begins. When Muzan came out slashing all the swordsmen, Ubuyashiki's leader froze, feeling the weight of all the deaths and started blaming himself. One of the girls slapped him, telling him to stay strong and give orders. He quickly ordered everyone to rush to Muzan's place at once. Meanwhile, Obanai and Mitsuri, still fighting, blamed themselves too for not doing anything, as all the Hashiras finished their battles and moved forward. After that, we finally see Tanjiro and Giyu reach Muzan. Tanjiro, filled with rage remembering his family and friends' deaths, wanted to attack, but Giyu ordered him to stay calm. Muzan mocked Tanjiro, saying he should feel lucky to be alive and move on, expecting him to think that just a natural disaster caused his family's death. Yet Tanjiro, shocked, listened as Muzan continued, telling him nothing could bring them back. With rage burning in his eyes, Tanjiro shouted that Muzan was the only thing that should not be allowed to exist. After Tanjiro and Giyu face Muzan in his true form, Tanjiro feels a cold rage in his stomach like never before. He analyzes Muzan's moves, knowing that cutting off his head won't work, as they need to hold him off until sunrise. Suddenly, Muzan attacks with sharp, stretching arms, destroying the place. Tanjiro dodges with pure instinct and luck, trying to get closer, but as he does, Muzan slashes his right eye and tries to finish him. But Giyu grabs him. Muzan mocks them, saying only 3 Hashira are left, and the rest were killed by Upper Moon 4, Nakime. At that moment, we see Obanai and Mitsuri in front of Nakime, dead. Tanjiro pushes Giyu away, saying he doesn't want to risk Giyu's life, but he can't use his breaths properly and gets slammed into a wall. Muzan didn't hesitate as he attacked him. Just then, Mitsuri appears attacking Muzan from behind, and Obanai pulls Tanjiro back, ordering him to not get in the way. Muzan gets furious, screaming to Nakime how they're still alive. At that moment, we see Yushiro behind her, pushing his fingers in her head to control her with his cells, with rage in his eyes, screaming that Muzan's biggest mistake was taking Tamayo away, and swearing he will take revenge from him. As Mitsuri sees how angry Muzan is, she wishes Himejima were there to encourage her. However, we see a flashback where Yushiro explains to her how to use Upper Moon 4, Nakame, to fool Muzan into thinking all the Hashira were dead. Back to the fight, Tanjiro struggles to reach the others, while Muzan notices Yushiro behind Nakame and claims to kill him, so he continues controlling the Infinity Castle, trying to absorb his cells to take back control of Nakame. As both fight for control, the 3 Hashiras attack Muzan, distracting him, and this gives Yushiro a chance to regain control and turn the Infinity Castle against Muzan. But Muzan kills Nakame to stop them from using her powers. While Yushiro realizes the castle will collapse and everyone will be dead except Muzan, he keeps fighting to move everyone out safely. At that moment, Muzan keeps attacking, slashing Tanjiro and aiming to finish Mitsuri. But Tanjiro throws a dead swordsman's blade straight at Muzan's head, saving her and making Muzan angry for using these little annoying attacks. At last, thanks to Yushiro's effort, they escape the Infinity Castle and reach the surface alive, but the fight still doesn't end. After Tanjiro and the others escape the Infinity Castle and find themselves in a city, the Ubuyashiki leader says this place wasn't planned and asks how much time is left until dawn, and the answer was, there's still 1.5 long hours. Muzan, furious, breaks through the collapsing walls, knowing their plan to keep him until dawn and challenging them to do it if they can. And as he attacks, the Hashiras dodge his attacks. Obanai cut off his neck, but Muzan's head doesn't fall. He regenerates instantly. At that moment, the Hashiras panics as their plan to cut him into pieces fails if he can regenerate in an instant. As Muzan goes to finish them, swordsmen rush in to protect the Hashiras, taking the hits by their own bodies. They scream that it's their turn to protect those who always protected them. Just then, Tanjiro rushes to create a chance, but collapses, coughing blood, while Muzan reveals his blood is poison. Too much kills, and Tanjiro has it in him. As Tanjiro suffers on the ground, Muzan coldly declares that Kamado Tanjiro is dead. After Muzan tells the Hashiras that Kamado Tanjiro is dead, far away, Nezuko's father appears in her dream, telling her to wake up and that Tanjiro is in danger. Nezuko stands up and runs, with Urokodaki chasing after her. Kyojuro informs the Ubuyashiki boy, who panics and orders them to bring her back. But suddenly, his father's spirit appears, telling him to let her go. One of the girls asks who to send, but the boy starts crying, saying there's no need because his father told him so. Back to Nezuko, she sees her father again, guiding her as she gets separated from Urokodaki. Meanwhile, Tanjiro is still suffering. The Hashiras attack Muzan, but he slashes them back. He says the Demon Slayer marks only helped them stay alive this this long. Just then, Kanroji collapses, as Muzan's blood starts working on her like a poison. He goes to finish her, but Himejima arrives protecting her. Muzan seems shocked, while Sanemi appears and slices him off. But Muzan heals again in an instant and attacks him. But Sanemi throws 4 bottles of oil and sets him on fire. Elsewhere, Murata carries Tanjiro away because Gyu asks him to save him. Tanjiro, fading, sees himself in his old clothes, holding an axe, just like the old days. As Tanjiro lies near death, his mind drifts into memories, while he sees Yoriichi, the original breath user, sitting in silence. Though Tanjiro can't speak, he watches. Yoriichi begins talking, recalling his past, his mother, his brother, and how his father wanted to separate them. He was an unwanted child because of his mark, so Yoriichi ran away, day after day, until he found a lonely girl named Uta, whose family had died. He waited beside her till sunset, then offered to stay with her. She was shocked, but accepted. They lived together, married, and she became pregnant. One day, he left to prepare for the birth, but on the way back, he helped an old man who wasn't doing well and wanted to travel 3 mountains because his son was on the verge of death, but he returned too late, as he finds out that Uta and their unborn child got killed. For 10 days, Yoriichi sat beside their bodies in silence. A swordsman found him, who was chasing the demon. That day, Yoriichi realized he couldn't ignore demons, so he joined the demon slayers and taught them breath techniques, and his brother joined too. They called it the Golden Age, and one night, Yoriichi faced Muzan, confident, standing beside a woman we now know as Tamayo. At that moment, Yoriichi knew he was born to defeat him. After Yoriichi faced Muzan, he sensed violence emanating from him, so he knew he had to defeat him. Muzan claimed he had no interest in swordsmen who could use breathing techniques, and we all know he had already recruited Kokushibo. As Muzan attacked, Yoriichi dodged effortlessly and saw through his body, identifying 7 hearts and 5 brains. At that moment, Yoriichi perfected his 12 forms and created the 13th. He slashed Muzan in multiple places, unable to regenerate, holding his own head with his arm. Yoriichi knew then that his red blade had worked. Rather than finish him, Yoriichi asked Muzan what he thought life meant. Muzan then exploded into 1,800 pieces, and Yoriichi managed to slash 1,500 of them, but the vital parts escaped. Tamayo began to cry, wishing for Muzan's death. Yoriichi asked her to help him kill Muzan, and she accepted. After that, Yoriichi learned that his brother had become a demon. The demon slayers demanded he die in shame, but the young Ubuyashiki head stopped them. Yoriichi believed he was born to end Muzan, but he failed. A little girl tugged on his robes. Kamado asked him to lift her, and as he did, she smiled. Yoriichi began to cry, holding her in his arms. As Muzan's attacks grew fiercer, the Hashiras were pushed back, and Kanroji struggled the most against it. She couldn't see his strikes, dodging only by instinct and luck. But something felt wrong. Before she could react, Muzan slashed her from behind. At that moment, Obanai rushed to get her out of the fight as the others attacked Muzan all at once. Leaving her with a Kakushi to treat her wounds, Obanai turned away, while Kanroji cried out, begging to fight beside him, and asked him not to die. As Obanai ran back, thoughts filled his heart on how peaceful life could have been without demons, and how many people could have lived. We see his full face for the first time, the scar across his mouth exposed. He thought he first must die and swap his tainted body for a clean one. Only then he can tell her that he loves her, as he was planning to die while defeating Muzan, so he can be reborn in a clean body. As Obanai's full face is revealed, back to his memories. He was born into a family of only women. He was the first male in 370 years, locked in a cage, treated kindly in a way that felt disgusting. Every night, he heard something big crawling, making him unable to sleep in fear. At 12, they brought him to a grand room where the truth revealed in front of him. He meet the snake-bodied demon, worshipped by his family, who gives babies to her as a sacrifice so she can devours them instead. But she let Obanai to live because of his rare eyes, fascinated her, while she ordered them to cut his mouth so he can match hers, and they did. She drank his blood. At that time, he only wanted to live, and planned to escape using a stolen hairpin, and trusting only Kaburamaru, the snake that stayed with him those times. He fled, but the snake demon chased him. Just as death closed in, Rengoku saved him. Things went well until he met his surviving cousin, who cursed him, saying it was his fault everyone died. From that day, he vowed to kill demons and save others, but the guilt stayed. That's why he must kill Muzan and die. Only then he can be reborn in a pure body so he can tell Kanroji he loved her. As the fight between Obanai and Muzan continues, he struggles to dodge the deadly, relentless strikes, but he pushes on, so their allies' sacrifices can't be in vain. Nearby, Gyu drops his sword, his grip weakened by Muzan's poison. As Muzan moves in to finish him, Obanai and Himejima block the blow just in time. Gyu, emotional but resolute, rises again. He's a Hashira, as Muzan mocks them, declaring they'll all collapse within 5 minutes as the poison finishes them off. Just as hope fades, a cat leaps onto a rooftop. It was Tamayo's cat, carrying vials. It throws the antidote to the fighters below. Muzan slashes it down, furious, but it's too late. The antidote works on the Hashiras and the poison fades. Muzan rages, realizing Tamayo still defies him even in death. He calls them all obsessed freaks and begins tearing through the city. Obanai recalls a crow's report on Tokito when he knows he turned his blade red by gripping it tightly while having the mark and standing at death's edge. Obanai mirrors that he's in the same position, and finally he's awakened and the mark and his blade burns red, but that means he walks the path of death. death. As Obanai's blade burns red, he realizes that his body fails because he's out of breath and his vision is fading, his limbs numb, while only his hand can still grab the sword. As Muzan strikes, Obanai stands frozen until, in a flash, he soars upward, and Muzan's arm is sliced clean off. Muzan senses it wasn't Obanai who did that. It's something unseen. He got another strike that definitely wasn't from the Hashiras, so he scans the battlefield and realizes 3 people are cloaked nearby, hidden by Tamayo's technique. With a swift slash, the veil breaks, revealing Kanao, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, now joining the battle. Zenitsu's back still crying, while Obanai regaining control and slashing Muzan with his incomplete red blade, making Muzan's regeneration slow. The trio continues hiding using the same papers, frustrating Muzan, who calls their tactics pathetic tricks. Meanwhile, Himejima seizes the moment, making his weapon ignites red and strikes Muzan's shoulder, making him impressed. Sanemi and Giyu clash their blades, causing their own blades to turn red and launching a counterattack against Muzan when it's only 1 hour and 3 minutes until dawn. As Tanjiro was near death, Yushiro with the Kakushi tried to heal him, impressed by how Tanjiro refused to let go of his sword, even when he collapsed. At that moment, Tanjiro finally opened his eyes, knowing well what he needed to do. Back on the battlefield, the Hashiras fought desperately, as Sanemi used Tamayo's cloaking technique against Muzan, while Himejima tried to see through Muzan like he did Kokushibo, as he saw multiple hearts and brains shifting locations. He called Obanai, urging him to see it too. Obanai unlocked the transparent world. Feeling cornered, Muzan exploded with rage, destroying the battlefield. The Hashiras and the others lay scattered and bloodied. Kanao stood frozen as Muzan tried to finish her, but suddenly, a blazing wall of Hinokami Kagura erupted. Tanjiro cut Muzan's arm, protecting Kanao, and leaving it to Kakushi, and turning back to Muzan with angry eyes, Muzan saw Yoriichi's ghost in Tanjiro. As Tanjiro tells Muzan to put an end to this fight as the final battle begins. After seeing his ancestors' memories, Tanjiro noticed small mistakes in his own moves, comparing it to Yoriichi moves when he showed his sword style to Suyako, and how Sumiyoshi watched and remembered every step. Before Yoriichi left, he gave his earrings to Sumiyoshi. As he shouted that Yoriichi is not a man of no worth because he protected them, Yoriichi smiled and waved goodbye, after Sumiyoshi promised him to pass down his sword style and earning. Even though Tanjiro isn't from Yoriichi's family, he had his earrings, his sword style, and his mark. By this way, back in the fight, Tanjiro realized all 12 forms are connected. If he uses them one after another, he can create the 13th form and kill Muzan. But he has 2 big problems. He's not as talented as his dad or Yoriichi, and he doesn't know how to stop Muzan from exploding. Still, he keeps fighting. Muzan sees Yoriichi's ghost in Tanjiro and gets angry. His body changes, attacking in crazy ways, but Tanjiro keeps going, linking every move together toward the final form. As Tanjiro and Muzan kept fighting, Muzan noticed that Tanjiro's blade had turned red without Nezuko's help. Even though Tanjiro was close to death, he did it on his own, but Muzan didn't care. He said it's still not close to Yoriichi's level. Tanjiro had already linked 6 forms, but he was badly hurt. Still, he didn't stop, as Muzan couldn't understand why he couldn't finish off a human who was tired and poisoned. Tanjiro's speed stayed the same, while Muzan was getting slower. That's when he realized Tamayo must have done something to him. He tried to ask her, but she refused to tell him, so he dug deeper into her memories. We then see how Tamayo, Shinobu, and Yushiro made a special drug. If it didn't turn Muzan into a human, it would age him 50 years per minute. By now, Muzan had aged 9,000 years, while the dawn was still 59 minutes away. Tanjiro burned with determination, keeping pressure on Muzan. He had now linked all 12 forms and had to repeat them again and again until sunrise. As Yushiro and the Kakushi rushed to the injured Hashira to heal them, Yushiro ran to Himejima and was shocked. He had lost so much blood, so he knew that without the strongest Hashira, Tanjiro can't hold Muzan until dawn. He started crying, begging Himejima to stay alive and protect Tanjiro, while doing everything he could to heal him. Back at the fight, Tanjiro tried to use all 12 forms to cut Muzan's hearts and brains. He wanted to enter the transparent world, but he was running out of oxygen, and his vision started going black. And as Muzan tries to kill him, suddenly, Obanai saved him again, pulling him away from Muzan's attack, and seeing Obanai's face was badly cut, but he didn't stop. He used his snake, Kaburamaru, to know Muzan's attacks and dodged them and threw Tanjiro away while Muzan got angry, destroying all over the place. He did get angrier seeing someone avoid him without even seeing and using a snake. Then Tanjiro noticed something strange. Scars on Muzan's body, the same ones Yoriichi gave him long ago. Muzan still couldn't heal them. That's when Tanjiro realized Yoriichi was still guiding him toward victory. When Muzan first faced Yoriichi, he looked weak with no killing intent, yet Yoriichi still cut him, leaving wounds that burned like the sun even after centuries, as he proved that Yoriichi was the true monster. However, when Muzan heard there was still only 40 minutes until dawn, he ran away while Tanjiro was in shock. He screams to Obanai, informing him as he couldn't see, but Obanai wasn't surprised, knowing that Muzan has no pride, only the instinct to survive. At that moment, Tanjiro chases him, reaching a place where the Kakushi lies dead. Muzan crushes their bodies without care, enraging Tanjiro, who throws swords at him, doing everything to stop him. Muzan says the blade's slashes are weak, but deep thrusts hurt more. Suddenly, Obanai joins in, stabbing his red blade into Muzan's neck, forcing him down. Tanjiro hands Obanai the paper to turn invisible and fight properly. Obanai uses it as both know they can't let Muzan escape at this point, while Muzan, gasping and drained, tries to flee, but they block his path. As Nezuko runs toward the city, she starts turning human. Her face begins to change as memories flood back to when her family got killed by Muzan that night and gave her blood to turn her into a demon, but he thought she'd die, saying he can't create a demon that can conquer the sun. While she remembers Tanjiro, her promise with Tanjiro to protect her no matter what, their friends, and everything they've been through. Crying, she recalls her name while her eyes turn normal as Nezuko is fully human again. Back in the fight, Tanjiro battles on, while Muzan senses the Hashira are still alive thanks to Yushiro's help. As he hears there's only 35 minutes until dawn, he tries to explode like he did to escape Yoriichi back then. Tanjiro warns Obanai about it, while panicking about stopping him because even Yoriichi couldn't manage to do it. But Muzan suddenly can't split himself apart as he was shocked. Tamayo appears, revealing she poisoned him with 4 drugs, mocking him by saying the death he feared the most is now before his eyes. Tamayo didn't need to be stronger than Muzan. She just had to make him weak. As he did anything to survive, she was able to do everything to kill him. Though the red blades were useless, the drugs made them deadly, pushing him near death. Trying to break down the drugs, Muzan unleashed a massive shockwave, knocking down Tanjiro and Obanai and destroying everything around. Tanjiro couldn't even move or think. The blast even reached Ubuyashiki's hidden place, who was shocked at Muzan's power despite his weakened state. Muzan tried to escape again but was stopped by Inosuke. Too tired to use his powers, Muzan faced Inosuke, who demanded he pay for everyone he hurt or killed. As Muzan attacked, he was so close to finishing him, but Zenitsu protected him and joined to hold him off. At that moment, Tanjiro forced his red blade into his body to stop the shock, while Muzan couldn't even lift his arms as he sensed the Hashira's return, still standing again and again until their last breath. As Inosuke and Zenitsu fight Muzan to hold him till the dawn, Zenitsu uses his 7th form, but it doesn't cut deep because he was definitely tired. Also, Inosuke attacks too, but Muzan hits him with a shock, making him unable to move. And as Muzan tries to finish him, Tanjiro joins by cutting off his arms protecting Inosuke, and keeps fighting. Inosuke gets back up to help, and Zenitsu slashes Muzan from behind, but again the slash isn't deep though he's too tired to move fast. The same attacks repeat until Tanjiro pushes Muzan into a corner, holding him with his sword to the wall. At that moment, Muzan tries to strike back, but Mitsuri grabs and destroys his arms before he can land the hit. But Muzan hits her, then goes back to Tanjiro. But Sanemi cuts Muzan's arms and pins it to the wall. Suddenly, Muzan then tries to eat Tanjiro with his head, but Obanai jumps in and sacrifices himself. As the Hashira screams to hold it a little bit more as the first light of dawn appears, shining across the battlefield. As Muzan sees the sun rising, he screams, launching another shock attack, destroying the place and throwing everyone away, except Tanjiro, who loses his left arm but keeps holding his sword until he crumbles away, trying to make it turn red. But suddenly, Giyu grabs the sword and helps him, turning it red and pushing Muzan to the wall. Muzan starts bleeding as the sun burns him. Then, he transforms into a giant baby to escape. He absorbs Tanjiro and Giyu, but Tanjiro pushes Giyu out, staying inside Muzan alone. Muzan runs while burning, but the Kakushi's helps by blocking his path, following Ubuyashiki's plan to stop him without more deaths. Sanemi cuts off Muzan's arms, and Himejima wraps chains around his head, dragging him into the sun with Kakushi's help. At that moment, Himejima's chain breaks while the giant baby tries to dig underground, but Tanjiro's red blade inside him forces him to spit blood. Giyu, Sanemi, and Obanai keep attacking, while giant baby screams one last time before the sun finally burns him to ashes. As Muzan's monstrous form burns in the sun, everyone celebrates, crying in relief, thinking the battle is over. But something feels wrong. At the same time, Himejima lies dying. He remembers the children who got killed, revealing they tried to protect him despite being blind. They apologize, saying they didn't run. They tried to grab weapons or help, and some chased Kaigaku. Himejima dies with tears and a smile. Elsewhere, Obanai cradles Mitsuri. She says she can't feel her body, meaning she's near death. Obanai gently confesses his love, and Mitsuri, crying, asks if they can be together in the next life. He promises to protect her then, for sure. Sanemi sees visions of his family in a peaceful place. His mother, full of guilt, refuses to cross over. Just as Sanemi decides to follow her to hell, his father throws him back, saying his time didn't come yet, because he is his son. Sanemi wakes up alive, while Inosuke and Zenitsu are being treated. Giyu searches, only to find Tanjiro motionless, not breathing. Everyone breaks down in tears. Giyu holds his hand, apologizing for not protecting him, as Nezuko arrives at their place. As the ancestor of demons is now on the brink of death, Muzan crumbles in the sun, while he recalls his birth, how his heart stopped several times in his mother's mother's belly. Also how he was born not breathing, thought to be dead, until he cried from struggle. While he knew that all the creatures will face death unexpectedly like what Ubuyashiki said to him, and that is what he fears the most. Knowing the sunlight would end him, Muzan makes a final move. He refuses to vanish. So he pours all his blood, power, and emotions into Tanjiro's lifeless body. His heart has stopped, but his cells remain. Believing that Tanjiro can conquer the sun because he shares the same blood with his sister Nezuko, and because she conquered the sun, he could too, while saying if it works, Tanjiro will become the strongest king of demons because he wields the same breath as Yoriichi, the only man Muzan ever feared, leaving everything to him while he vanished. Back to the battle scene, Tanjiro's eyes snap open, demonic red. His face and arm heal instantly. He attacks the Kikuchi in a blur, but Giyu protects him just in time, as Kamado Tanjiro is now the new demon king. After Tanjiro becomes the new king of demons, Giyu orders the Kikuchi to get away from him, while Tanjiro attacks another Kikuchi, but the sunlight starts burning him like any other demon. At that moment, Giyu shouts for help, ordering the others to bring their swords as he informs them that Tanjiro turned into a demon and they must kill him before he kills someone. Tanjiro tries to hide in the dark, but Giyu pins him down with his sword while begging him to die as Tanjiro. Suddenly, he saw Tanjiro conquering the sun and slashes Giyu in his mouth. Just as he's about to finish him, Inosuke stops him, but Tanjiro attacks him, while Zenitsu emotionless breaks down, saying it's too much, and everyone is too weak to fight after the battle with Muzan. As Tanjiro charges at Inosuke, Inosuke says Tanjiro is like his brother and promises to stop him if needed so they can all walk to the right path. But as he remembers Tanjiro's kindness, Inosuke hesitates. With his blade near Tanjiro's neck, he can't cut him, saying he just can't do it while crying because they were buddies after all. As Inosuke hesitates to kill Tanjiro, Nezuko runs to hug him, but Tanjiro, who is now a demon, can't feel anything. He digs his fingers and teeth into her. Nezuko cries, begging for forgiveness, saying she didn't understand his pain while he suffered alone. Tanjiro shows no emotion, screaming while hurting her. Zenitsu, Inosuke, and the Kikuchi rush to pull him away from her, but he unleashes a shockwave, throwing them all back. Tanjiro now looks like Muzan, with bones sprouting from his back. He attacks Zenitsu, but Giyu blocks him. Giyu panics, realizing nothing can defeat Tanjiro now, not even sunlight or red blades. Tanjiro fires another shockwave from his mouth, but Nezuko redirects it with her hand, making it all bloody. At that moment, Giyu notices Tanjiro didn't kill Nezuko and realizes he's still fighting inside to not hurt them. Meanwhile, Yushiro watches helplessly because of the sunlight. Just then, Kanao runs in, remembering the medicine that Shinobu gave her, the same they used on Nezuko. Kanao uses her final form to inject it into Tanjiro's back. She gets hit at the same time, but she succeeds, while Tanjiro finally starts to wake up. While everyone tries to save Tanjiro, inside his mind he cries, wanting to go home with Nezuko. Muzan holds him back, saying there's no point, everyone is dead. But Tanjiro says their memories live on, and Nezuko is still alive. Muzan lies, saying Nezuko is dead, but Tanjiro knows the truth. His family's hands guide him up. As Muzan continues saying everyone hates him, but Tanjiro can smell their worry and wants to apologize for what he did. Muzan tries again, warning he'll die soon from the mark, but Tanjiro chooses to die human. Muzan screams, calling him trash, but the Hashira's hands lift him, and Nezuko's hand reaches for him. Muzan begs him to stay and carry his will, but Tanjiro says those people risked their life to protect others, not letting them fall in the same pain they've been through, while Hands pulls him up as Muzan begs not to be left behind. However, Tanjiro wakes up, surrounded by everyone. Nezuko cries in relief, Zenitsu yells at him, and Giyu is barely standing. Tanjiro finds Kanao alive, both smiling in tears. Yushiro hides, crying with Tamayo's hairpin, saying, "It's finally over." 3 months after defeating Kibutsuji Muzan, we see the four still healing, and the world is now free of demons, though it came at the cost of many lives. Tanjiro's hand has become wrinkled like an old man's. He can only move it up and down but can't feel anything. He also lost sight in his right eye, which had regenerated like his arm when he became a demon. After that, we see Yushiro explains that Tanjiro only returned to being human because of two things: biting Nezuko first and receiving Shinobu's medicine. Without either, it wouldn't have worked. He calls them lucky and thanks Tanjiro before leaving. As he walks away, Tanjiro asks him not to die, since he's the only one left who can keep Tamayo's memory alive, and wishes him well, still feeling worried about him. At the Ubuyashiki estate, we see Sanemi and Giyu meet with Kirya and his two sisters for the final Hashira meeting, as the Demon Slayer Corps is being disbanded. They thank them for their efforts, while Giyu says that all their ancestors, including his father, would be proud of their work, which makes the children cry and thank him with deep emotion. After the demon hunters defeat Muzan, we see Tanjiro still healing, while Tengen and his wives visit him, joined by the Rengoku family. As Shinjuro thanks Tanjiro for holding Kyojuro's hilt during battle, saying that Kyojuro is surely happy seeing him doing that. Then, the Hayotoko brigade arrives to check on Tanjiro, along with the Kikuchis too. That's when Inosuke sneaks away from the room and heads to the kitchen, where he finds Aoi cooking. So he steals food, thinking he's invisible, but Aoi notices him, and yells at him to stop stealing as she gives him a full plate, telling him he can eat as much as he wants, whenever he wants. In that moment, we see Inosuke start falling falling in love with her. Elsewhere, we see Kanao looking at the blossoming tree, and Tanjiro joins her, and they both begin falling in love too. Tanjiro asks her about her vision and wounds, and she replies that she's fine. She didn't lose all her vision. She also says that Sanemi visited her and gave her Obanai's snake a moment ago, as we see everything goes fine now. After Sanemi visited Kanao and gave her Obanai's snake, he met Nezuko on his way to leave, seeing her speak to him normally for the first time. So he apologized for how he treated her back in season 1, and how things didn't go as planned as he was sleeping after Muzan was defeated and Tanjiro became a demon. But Nezuko didn't mind. She kept speaking kindly, saying she's been sleeping for 2 years and that she loves sleeping, reminding him of his younger brother Genya, who loves sleeping too. As he tapped her head and told her to take care, Zenitsu was hiding nearby, spying on them as he got jealous for her. Later, Nezuko and Tanjiro meet with Gyu and Urokodaki, then go to visit the graves, placing flowers for everyone who died. As they go to their family home, praying to their family graves, and cleans the place, showers and eat together in joy until night. Time flows into the modern age, and the Demon Slayer story is officially complete now. Did you know that all the Demon Slayer characters were reincarnated after Muzan was defeated? As time flows into the modern age, we see a boy named Kanata, who looks exactly like Kanao, trying to wake up his brother Sumihiko, who looks just like Tanjiro, confirming that Tanjiro and Kanao got married after the battle. Then we see Yoshiteru, a boy who resembles Zenitsu but with black hair, reading a book about the Demon Slayer Corps' journey, written by his Zenitsu as he get emotional, while his sister Tuko kicks him from behind, scolding him to stop reading the book and to focus on exams that he failed. Clearly, those two reflect Zenitsu and Nezuko, meaning Yoshiteru and Tuko are their descendants. Even though she thinks the stories are just lies, Yoshiteru still believes in the history of demons and the sacrifices made, especially reincarnation, saying that everyone who fought against demons is now living a happy life. But Tuko just didn't care as she take her phone, and we see Uzui appears on TV as a 20-yo famous gymnastics athlete, still rude as usual, showing that even in a modern world, they still got their own personality. After Yoshiteru expresses his belief in Zenitsu's book, his sister brushes it off as nonsense. Then, on the news, Yoshiteru sees a researcher who looks exactly like Inosuke, his reincarnation. The researcher had been studying the blue spider lily for 7 months. The flower blooms only 2 to 3 times a year during the day, which is why Muzan never found it. They all withered due to a careless mistake, and the team apologized on TV. Yoshiteru felt bad, but his sister told him the researcher was actually a man. He instantly changed his tone, saying they should just die, as his sister says he just like Zenitsu. Later, a woman walks by with twin babies, the reincarnations of Tokito and his brother. Kanai and Shinobu also pass by, their scent making Yoshiteru fall in love. Meanwhile, his sister meets Kanata and they click immediately, clearly in love. On the way to school, they pass Himajima's reincarnation, still huge and intimidating. Finally, they go to eat at a shop run by Mitsuri and Obanai's reincarnations. Kanata says someone stared at Mitsuri, and Obanai threw a knife at him. That someone was Yoshiteru. Back to the Kamado family, we see Sumihiko just waking up, already late. He blames his brother for not waking him up and quickly gets dressed. He jumps out the window, showing off his incredible flexibility. As he runs, he passes by the house of the reincarnations of Zenitsu's grandfather and Urokodaki, who both yell at him for doing this every single day. He keeps running and passes the 3 sisters who were always seen at Shinobu's hospital. They call him the Running Man, as he zips by again. As Sumihiko continues his dash, a police car suddenly blocks his way. He dodges it using his flexible body and apologizes. But the cops turn out to be the reincarnations of Genya and Sanemi, who get angry after realizing this is the same kid they've received 7 reports about. While Sumihiko questions if he'll make it in time, he passes by the reincarnation of Gyu and his 2 friends. The girl among them seems to be in love with Gyu. Meanwhile, a high school student pulls out a picture of a beautiful woman. Yoshiteru explains that this painting was made by a mysterious man, none other than Yushiro, the former demon. He continues to paint the same beautiful woman, Tamayo. Despite his fame, Yushiro refuses to give interviews back to Sumihiko, who meets the reincarnation of Kyojuro, now named Tojuro. He's also late, having stayed up until 4 a.m. As they run to school, the police follow Sumihiko for his reckless actions, telling him to stop, but he doesn't hear them because he's listening to Tojuro. As we know, Sumihiko is very lazy. He'd rather sleep than join any school club. As they approach the gate, we see the reincarnation of the legendary Murata, who wants to close the gates early, 3 minutes before the bell, because he's tired of their last-minute rushes. But like always, they jump over the gate and get in, leaving Murata in shock. The police finally reach the gate and, with an intimidating look, ask Murata for the time. Meanwhile, the reincarnation of Inosuke is just as wild as ever. After learning he might be fired from his research job, he considers living alone in the mountains instead. In the final scene, Kanao answers a phone call and learns her son has caused trouble. We then see Kamado's Hanafuda earrings and photos of the fallen Demon Slayer Corps, now smiling in peace as the world is finally free from demons.